a religion believed in by 2.3 billion people. But how did it really emerge? Who was Jesus? God, a prophet, or simply a Jewish teacher? And perhaps most importantly, how did Christianity grow from a small community into a force that shaped the world? Today, with its 2.3 billion followers, Christianity is the largest religion in the world. It has major denominations such as Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Protestantism, and remains at the center of many debates. Now let's go back about 2,000 years to a town near Jerusalem called Bethlehem. Although not certain, according to belief, the prophet Jesus was born in Bethlehem and raised in Nazareth. His mother, Mary, gave birth in a stable, which surprised many people. Because Mary was not married and claimed that no man had touched her, she said that this child had been placed in her womb as a gift from God. Christianity and Islam share a similar perspective on this event. The difference is this. According to the Bible, Mary had a fiancé named Joseph, while the Quran does not mention such a person. One of the key points where Islam, Christianity, and historians differ is this. According to Muslims, the prophet Jesus renewed the corrupted Torah and brought a new book called the Gospel. But this book was later altered by people. According to Christianity, however, Jesus did not come to change things, but to add to them and to warn the Jewish people whose worship had turned into a showy system of values. This is expressed in the Bible as follows. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. In other words, according to Christians, it was not the Jewish scriptures that were corrupted, but their understanding of worship and the religious establishment. Historians, on the other hand, say this. Jesus did not bring a new religion, nor did he bring a new book. When you read the Gospel or examine the historical process, you see that Jesus was a Jew and addressed only the Jewish people. Indeed, in the Bible, the audience of Jesus is seen to be only the Jewish people and Jewish religious leaders. For this reason, the Roman Empire did not pay much attention to Jesus and his followers, considering it an internal matter of the Jews, and did not intervene for a long time. At the time of his execution, they wrote, King of the Jews. So how did Christianity become a religion that has reached billions of people today? The key point lies in a man named Paul, who was once an enemy of Jesus during his lifetime. According to Paul's claim, while he was on the road to Damascus to arrest Christians, he encountered a vision. The figure he saw was Jesus himself, who said, Why are you persecuting me? This became his turning point. Paul went to the apostles of Jesus, told them what he had experienced, and influenced them. He said, Why are we trying to spread our faith only among the Jews? Why not extend salvation to all humanity? He began writing letters to Jews across Europe and Anatolia and traveled to spread his teachings until he was executed. However, Christianity, which had begun to spread within the borders of the Roman Empire, was banned by the state. Christians were killed in arenas and even thrown to wild animals. Rome's harsh and oppressive stance only contributed to the further spread of this religion. Still, Christianity's spread throughout Europe was only completed in the 5th century. Until then, paganism remained widespread across much of the continent. Now let's move on to the Bible, their holy book. It is often thought that there are 4 types of the Bible: the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In reality, the situation is a bit different. According to most Christians, these are not separate Gospels, but rather parts of a single Gospel. In fact, it does not consist of only 4 parts. There are 27 different sections, and these 4 are just the introductory parts. These 27 sections are called the New Testament. According to Muslims, this is an indication that the gospel has been altered. Christians, on the other hand, believe that it is not changed, but an incorruptible book formed by individuals inspired by God. Historians reject both views and insist that the Bible was formed through the compilation of ancient pagan, Buddhist, and mythological beliefs and teachings. So, according to Christianity, is Jesus God? The belief in the Trinity, also known as the Holy Trinity, you've probably heard it in movies, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, is one of the fundamental aspects of Christianity, and also one of the most questioned topics by others. The Son here is a symbolic term and represents a human. The Holy Spirit is symbolized by a dove and represents God's presence felt within humans. According to Christianity, the power of faith and belief that a person feels within themselves is a manifestation of the Holy Spirit. All of these come together to form one God. The important point for us is the acceptance of Jesus as God. In summary, they say he is not a separate God, but the human form of one single God. However, the belief in the Trinity still causes divisions among Christians today. There are also denominations that argue Jesus has no share in divinity and is only human. According to some historians, this situation is particularly influenced by Greek mythology. It is even believed that among religions, Christianity is the most influenced by Greek mythology. In Turkey, although not exact, there are between 200,000 and 500,000 Christians. In proportion to the population, Turkey has one of the lowest numbers of Christians among Middle Eastern countries. About 12% of Egypt's population, 10% of Syria's, 40% of Lebanon's, 7% of Jordan's, around 50% of the African continent in general, and about 80% of the American continent are Christian. Now, let's look at their religious holidays. Thanksgiving, which many of you have heard of, is a religious and national holiday celebrated only in the United States and Canada to give thanks for the harvest and the blessings of the past year. It usually begins in the afternoon with a family meal and lasts for hours. Turkey and various potato dishes are the main foods. The most commonly known Christian celebration is Christmas. It is celebrated on December 25th, which they believe is the birthday of Jesus. Some Christians celebrate it on January 6th. It is known that Christmas existed in different beliefs even before Christianity. Long before the birth of Jesus, sun-worshipping pagans celebrated in late December because the days began to get longer again. A common misconception in the Islamic world is confusing Christmas on December 25th with New Year's Day on January 1st. In fact, they are completely unrelated days and concepts. Easter is one of the most important and oldest celebrations in Christianity. It commemorates the resurrection of Jesus on the third day after his crucifixion. Although there are differences between Eastern and Western churches, the Easter period generally falls between late March and late April. In Judaism, similar dates correspond to Passover, also known as the Feast of Unleavened Bread. In Istanbul, there is also a ceremony held every year on January 6th, where a cross is retrieved from the Bosphorus. This is a festival that the Greek Orthodox community calls Tafoda. To commemorate the baptism of Jesus by John the Baptist, a ceremony is held in which a cross is retrieved from the cold waters of the Bosphorus. In recent years, this ceremony even led to a rather unusual protest. A group dressed as Janissaries and Mehmed the Conqueror attempted to disrupt the event. However, it is known that Mehmed the Conqueror never interfered with the religious ceremonies of these communities. Just as Friday is significant for Muslims, Sunday holds the same sacred meaning for Christians. The Catholic Church, in particular, has declared the following rule. On Sundays and other holy days of obligation, believers are required to attend sacred services. They should refrain from all work and business that would hinder worship and the joy appropriate to the Lord's Day. It is believed that Jesus rose from the dead on the Sunday after his crucifixion, and for this and many other reasons, Sunday was chosen as the day of worship. Confession is also one of the practices of the Catholic Church. One of the fundamental rules in this practice is that the person confessing does not see the priest. For this reason, the individual expresses their remorse either from behind a curtain or in a small room separated by a wall. As a result, the priest prays for their forgiveness and assigns a form of penance, such as distributing food for a month or making a donation. The essential element of confession is the commitment not to repeat the sin. One of the most common criticisms of this practice is that the confession system could be misused for purposes such as espionage. One of the key differences between the two religions concerns how Jesus died. According to Islam, he did not die. Instead, someone else was made to resemble him by God. Therefore, he will return in the future. According to Christianity, he sacrificed himself for the sins of humanity, died in agony on the cross, and will return again as the Messiah. Both beliefs agree on his return. The disagreement lies only in the manner of his death. There are also similarities between the two religions regarding the miracles performed by Jesus. In both beliefs, it is accepted that Jesus raised the dead, healed the sick, enabled the blind to see, and made the paralyzed walk. The Pope is the highest authority in the Catholic Church and is regarded as an infallible spiritual leader. He holds the authority to make judgments. The popes, believed to be successors of Peter, one of the apostles who was executed while spreading Christianity in the Roman Empire, serve from the time they are elected until their death. Their deaths and the election of a new pope are announced to the public through smoke rising from chimneys in the Vatican. Especially during the Middle Ages, the papacy held immense power. There were times when, with a single word, they could dethrone kings. The Inquisition courts, which existed during the Middle Ages and later turned into a system of severe torture, were also under the control of the papacy. This institution has been the subject of many conspiracy claims even in recent times. The Pope is not recognized as an authority in Protestant and Orthodox denominations. This is one of the reasons for the emergence of different sects within Christianity. There are hundreds of sub-denominations, communities, and groups within Christianity. Mormons and evangelicals in the United States are just a few examples. In some Christian groups, there are activities known as missions. It is known that young people between the ages of 18 and 20 travel across African and Asian countries, carrying out missionary work for several years. Their largest areas of activity are the Far East and Africa. It is even estimated that the number of people attending Sunday services in China exceeds that of all Europe. In the 20th century, Christianity in China became associated with Western imperialism. The Communist Chinese regime expelled missionaries in 1948 and closed most churches. However, with the lifting of these restrictions in the 1980s, it began to spread again. The number of Christians in China, which was 4 million in 1948, has now reached around 75 million. However, one thing often stands out. While Christianity spreads rapidly in less developed countries, it declines at the same pace in more developed countries where access to information is unlimited. For example, in some Northern European societies, nearly 70% of the population is not affiliated with any religion. Instead, there is a greater inclination toward monotheism or atheism. It is believed that within the next 50 years, there will be a significant decline in the number of followers of all religions worldwide, and the perception of belief will be very different from today. We will see what happens in time. Nevertheless, for a better world, it is important to remember that human connection matters more than religious division. Because in the end, even if we have different beliefs, we share the same world. And perhaps what truly matters is not what we believe in, but how we treat one another. Thank you for watching. During my recent trip to Cappadocia, I had the opportunity to explore important sites that bear traces of Christian history and were once used as living spaces. Based on these observations, I am planning to create a video focusing on these historical locations unique to Cappadocia. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the growth of the channel. You can also help us reach more people by sharing the video.